Hello, parents and guardians of the class of 2025. My name is Ron Agostinoni. I'm the principal here at Shenandoah High School. We thank you so much for tuning in this evening. We're doing this new format, obviously, for obvious reasons. We're going to do our best to make this interactive for you. We're going to do our best to make sure we're looking at the camera and not the screen in front of me. And go through a number of things for high school for you. We sent out a bunch of videos, a lot of information. We know it was a ton of information. We don't expect you to watch it all at one time. But you can kind of click through and look at different things for the different progressions. I know there was math and science and social studies and English and business and tech and art, music. They were all sent out to you. So when you do have time, kind of click through them. Also, our program of studies, which is on the Shenandoah website, has a lot of that same information where you can kind of look at our course offerings. I know your students are going through the course request program right now. They're working with their counselors in 8th grade as they kind of pick their high school courses and some electives and kind of start to map out their path. I know it's probably exciting for some of you who've been through the high school experience before with other children, and for some of you this is the first time your kids are entering high school. It's hard to believe they've been through presumably 9 years of school now, and they get ready for high school. So it's an exciting time for us. We know they're going to learn a lot of things in high school, academically and socially, and we want to be here for you and for your kids. Tonight, you'll be hearing from myself. Obviously, our associate principal at High School West is Mr. Gutschel. He's right here to my right, and our class assistant principal, Ms. Lena McMahon, is there to my left. And you can see on your screen we have associate principals and assistant principals also at High School East. You'll be meeting them as your students go through their high school career. Also with us is Kathleen Drago. You see her name on the screen. She is our associate principal in 11th grade currently. Most likely, she'll be the associate principal for your students when they enter 10th grade as they rotate through in High School East. Our administrative teams do, and she'll be moderating the chat for us and kind of helping us out with questions as they come through. So we have a lot to get through. We really want to take your questions. We have a couple slides to look at, some schedule, some extracurriculars. I'm going to ask Mr. Gutschel to come up, kind of go through the high school schedule with you real quickly.
All right, thank you, Mr. Agostinoni. Good evening, parents, guardians, students. We look forward to having you join us come September. There are a couple items that we didn't include in the videos that we created for you. We'll be very brief as we want to dedicate the vast majority of this program to your questions, and we see some of them already coming in, some great questions. We'll get to those momentarily, but I want to share with you a sample schedule. Now, our times for the beginning of the day and the end of the day, along with our blocks, aren't solidified for next year, but I want to show you just an example of this year's schedule. The big things I want to point out, if you look over to the left-hand side where it shows the times for each of the blocks, and the blocks are broken up into mods, 1.1 and 1.2, that's block 1, 2.1, 2.2, and so on and so forth. So you see the times. The big things I want to point out, we start earlier than the middle school. So parents, get your kids in that habit probably as we're getting closer to September, getting them to bed earlier so that they can get up earlier so they're not missing the bus. We want them here. We want them here on time. But with that, they get out earlier as well. As you can see here with the sample schedule, the end of the day that we have for this year, our last block at High School West ends at 2:03. We're expecting it to be later next year, but just to give you an idea, it's going to be an earlier start and an earlier finish. I want to also point out a few other things on the schedule. For this example, we have the student is taking for their art, housing, and interior design, and that's on the B and the D days. The student is also taking global history and geography 9, and that's on A and C days during block 2. Their earth science are on the opposite days, B and D during block 2. But then you notice if you look at A day, block 1, the student has the earth science lab. So anything with a lab classes meet 3 out of every 4 days, along with this student having Algebra 1 with lab. And that student is meeting on A and C days for the algebra class with the lab taking place on the B days. PE is block 1 on C days. And at the end of the day, we have English on AC days and Spanish on B and D days. One last thing I want to point out is our lunch. Our lunch is during block 3, and we have 1 of 3 lunches that the students are assigned to, depending on the class that they are in. We break up the classes, and we try to even out all the students attending lunch either during the beginning of the block, so they go to lunch first, and then they have their block class after lunch, or they attend class for the first half, then go to lunch, and then return to class for the second half of class. Or lastly, for some students, they have their class first, and then they finish after class attending their lunch before they go to their 4th block. Now, Mr. Agostinoni has made a better visual example that he wants to go over right now using the same sample schedule of this student, but made a lot better than this sample here. So take it away, Mr. Agostinoni.
Well, thanks, Mr. Gutschel. I don't know if this is a better sample. As I look at it on the screen, I get a little confused with the colors. Mr. Gutschel is going to try to take over and use the laser pointer. We'll see how that works out as it jumps around the screen there. You'll notice the The days that are in red, A and C days, they're almost identical. You'll see global history happening block 2 and global history happening block 2. Same thing with algebra 1, and English on the bottom there. So A and C days are the same. And then B and D in the blue. Whoa.
Sorry, Mr. Agostino.
That's all right.
I got click happy there.
Yes. Like I said, we're doing our best here.
This is live.
This is live. And you'll see on the blue days, the classes are the same: interior design, earth science, at the bottom, Spanish 2. The things that do change are PE and earth science lab. Mr. Gutschel says they meet 3 out of every 4 days. You'll see earth science meeting 3 out of every 4 days, and PE meeting once.
Doing it again.
We'll see. We'll get to
click
it.
happy.
And PE meets once every 4 days in this schedule. So I tried to put those in yellow so you could see the only difference between the blue and the red there, where the yellow ones were PE or lab. This student is in Algebra 1 lab. That meets on B days, block 3, and then opposite that, the student would have a study hall. This is a very typical schedule for a 9th grade student. Some students might not have the algebra with lab. They might just have algebra, and then they might have 2 study halls, or they might put another class in there. A student might have resource room, and that might go in lieu of where the lab and study hall is, or it might go where housing and interior design is. So this is the typical schedule. Mr. Gutschel mentioned the lunches, how they're kind of split. We try to keep the science classes and the art classes to be a continuous block 3 as they're set up and take down, and some of the other classes might have that split block. So hopefully that's a better visual. I don't know if it works for you. I know your students, they figure it out really quick. They're much better at it than we are, so they can figure out the schedule. Once they go through it one time, they're perfectly set. And like Mr. Gutschel mentioned, the day starts earlier, it ends a little earlier, and the classes are 80 minutes long, so a little longer than what they used to have this year in the middle school. This year in middle school, they were about 64 minutes, give or take. And they rotate on an A, B, C, D schedule. This year, a little different. We had the A, B, and we kind of had that virtual Wednesday, as your students did in 8th grade, and then they went A, B again the following week, C, D, C, D. As we move past, hopefully the post-pandemic era, will be in just an A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D. So folks always ask, what happens on Friday? If you think about it, Monday's A, B, C, and D brings you to Thursday. Then Friday would start with an A again, and the following Monday, B, C, D, and it kind of continues in that format. A little different this year with some of the restrictions we were moving through. So if there's questions, please type them in the chat regarding schedule. But I know Miss Lena McMahon want to talk about some of the exciting things we do here at high school with respect to clubs and activities.
Thank you, Mr. Gastononi. So I'm Kristen Lena McMahon. I'm the class assistant principal here for High School West, and I wanted to take a little bit of time to talk with you about the extracurricular activities that we have here and that we offer for students. We know it's really important for students to get involved outside the classroom and have a sense of belonging. So if you look at the list here, these are not all of the clubs and extracurriculars that students can be involved with. However, these are the most popular ones. And if you look at the list, everything in red is offered here specifically at High School West. So your son or daughter could stay here after school and participate in those. And the ones that are outlined in black here are the ones that are offered at East. However, 9th grade students can absolutely participate in those. And what they would do is they would hop on a bus and shuttle over to East at the end of the day, and they would be able to participate in those. So we would really encourage you to look over this list with your children or your child and see what interests them, because again, it's really important for our students to have that sense of belonging and feel a sense of community here, and that starts with getting involved and finding something that interests them.
So we do want to get to questions. The information we sent out last week, you could see on the screen there. That is also in the description in this video, and it went out via SIS messages to you. So if you get a chance, kind of take a look at those videos. They do answer a lot of questions. We do want to get to some of the questions in the chat, and I know Ms. Drago is going to kind of shoot them over to us as she's kind of going through them. So at this point, I think one question I saw was about a walkthrough. So Joe, you can kind of click out of this if you'd like. And a question about a walkthrough. So the answer to that is yes. We will be having some type of walkthrough for students. Now I can't tell you exactly what it's going to look like. In pre-pandemic and hopefully post-pandemic, we would have all the students come in about the week before school started. We would let them walk the building. They would find their schedule, they'd find their lockers, and they'd kind of go through the building, have the run of the building for an hour or two, and we do some things in the cafeteria. That will happen again. I just don't know the format. If we have to break it up and go A through E for a certain period of time and kind of break and lower the groups that way and have them come in, but your students will definitely be able to come into the building before we start school. Just can't give you a definite on what it's going to look like.
So, Mr. Gutschall, parent is asking, their daughter is currently in 8th grade in a private school and is registered to begin 9th grade next year. Who should the parent contact to get in touch with someone to create their daughter's schedule?
Well, it's great that we're going to have, I would say, your child join us at High School West come September. You will be contacted by your child's counselor once the counselor is determined. That could be as early as late spring and as late as the summer, but as soon as those schedules are ready to be prepared for your child, we will be reaching out to you. So you should be hearing from one of our counselors regarding your child's schedule to set up that appointment.
And Mr. Gutschall, could you give an example of what a 9th grade schedule would look like if the student selected 2 electives?
Yes, so if you remember the schedule that I showed earlier, where the student had algebra with Algebra 1 with lab, that student wouldn't be able to take 2 electives. If you're in 2 labs, that prevents you from taking 2 electives that would meet on an every other day basis. So for students that don't have that second lab, they would be able to take a second elective during that time. So that student example that I showed you, the student was taking housing and interior design for their art credit. The student might be also able to take let's say a chorus class or a symphonic band class that would meet block 3, for example, on B and D days if they had room in their schedule. But for students that either have a resource or taking a second lab, they're only able to take 1 elective.
One of the videos talks about Regents and Advanced Regents Diplomas. If a student does not pass the second exam on one subject and passes the rest, what kind of diploma do they earn?
So I can take that. So the question about Regents Diploma, so that depends on the sequence because you do need 3 math exams. So you need to pass all the math Regents exams for the Advanced Regents Diploma or the Regents Diploma with Advanced designation. Now for science, you need 2. Presumably it'd be earth science and biology, but it could be earth science and chemistry. It could be chemistry and physics. You need 2. It does not matter which 2 they are. So students who do not receive the 9 Regents exams for the Regents with Advanced designation, if they pass the 5, they get the Regents Diploma. If that makes sense. There's a lot of different pathways to a diploma. It doesn't always have to be 2 science exams. It could be 2 social studies, 1 science. You can kind of substitute in and out with different pathways. So you'll want to work with your counselor. There's a lot of different avenues to it. But in general, it's 5 for the Regents Diploma and 8 or 9 for the Advanced Regents Diploma.
If my daughter selected 2 electives without any guidance, does she still have an opportunity to change them?
Yes, so in April, you will receive a course request report that will indicate the courses that your child is enrolled in or initially enrolled in after their meeting with their counselors in 8th grade. If you are not satisfied with the courses that are indicated on that report, you have the opportunity to reach out to your child's counselor to make any changes as deemed necessary.
Is SHED planning to start next school year with the CVL option?
So that is a great question. And when it comes to pandemic restrictions and post-pandemic, we don't have all the answers to that yet. That's really a district decision with the CVL option, and the state would weigh in on that. So at this time, we do not know if we'll be starting with a CVL option. So it is a little difficult with some of the questions that I'm sure we'll get because we just don't have all those answers. As soon as we do, we will let you know. We're not just 100% sure with the CVL option, or maybe it's better phrased, we don't know what the CVL option will look like next year.
Will incoming 9th graders be provided with a list of books and/or supplies that are necessary?
Yes, there will be a list provided for families. Those will be listed online typically. And those are a general list of supplies. And then when students come in, the first couple of days of school, teachers will let students know if there are additional items they need. But again, the basics will be listed online for students and their families to check out so the student can come in feeling like they're prepared for day one.
Which counselor is best able to provide information or answer questions regarding electives? The current 8th grade counselor, or should parents wait until the 9th grade counselor is assigned?
So I would recommend, if you have any initial questions right now, your child's current counselor in 8th grade is a great resource. They typically meet often with the 9th grade counselors. They were part of our program of studies meetings, so they know what courses are over at the high school west building along with high school east. So they're a great resource. And again, when your child comes up to 9th grade, if you have further questions, please reach out to their counselor.
If a student is entering 9th grade and has an IEP, is Mrs. Guthrie the best person to contact?
Yeah, I would say Mrs. Guthrie, she's the academic administrator for special education in 9th grade, or Miss Young at the middle school, either one. But Miss Guthrie, Catherine Guthrie, is the academic administrator for special education here at High School West and High School East.
Will parents have the opportunity to discuss and/or modify their child's schedule with the counselor before it's finalized?
So I would say when you receive the course request form in April, that's your opportunity to, if you have questions about specific courses that your child's going to take, make sure you get those squared away with your child's current counselor. After it's all said and done, we can guarantee for the most part the courses that are on that course request sheet, your child will be enrolled in when they enter 9th grade. Now, you will receive, or your child will receive in late August, a notification as to what their final schedule is. That's all determined by the best fit for your child's classes, what they're looking to take, and we look to do an even spread as much as possible. So you're not going to be able to say, I want this teacher or that teacher, or I want my child to have math first block. But we can basically guarantee the classes that are on that course request form, your child will get, unless you're notified otherwise that we had to disenroll because we had too many students in a particular class. And when we look to do that, we look to make sure we give the first choice for all students. So if we have to disenroll, it would normally be for students picking a second or third elective.
What qualifications are required for a 9th grade student to be eligible for AP classes?
You want to take that, Mike?
Want to go?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I think we can do this one together. So for AP classes, as they enter 10th grade, normally for, let's say if the student is in Global 9 honors, that's the typical pathway for a student to take AP World. However, a student that's in Global 9 not taking the honors, if they're doing an outstanding job, their ability to analyze primary sources is at an exemplary level. Their writing ability and their reading ability is above grade level. That student could also be recommended for an AP. So we offer AP World in 10th grade. And along with that, really, what other AP options are there, Mr. Agostini? I know there are more as you reach 11th grade. We get to AP US History Government, AP Chemistry. Usually AP Bio is a 12th grade class, not offered that many times to 10th graders.
We have 14, so we have 14 different advanced placement courses, and they are open, so students can elect to take those. The only one that would be a little difficult would be AP Calculus. A, B, and BC we offer. We also offer Calc 3. Those are typically accelerated math students, but all the other AP courses, students can challenge themselves. And I like when students challenge themselves. They can take the rigorous courses. And as Mr. Gutschel said, if you're succeeding in a course, there's no reason why you can't challenge yourself with the AP level. But we do offer 14 different AP courses at High School East. There's no AP level courses here at High School West. When you get to 10th grade and then subsequently 11th and 12th, there's a number of AP courses.
And Mr. A, can parents request that their 9th grader participate in honors level courses?
Yeah, you would want to work with your counselor. You talk to the teachers. There's teacher recommendation process, and work with your school counselor to make sure you're setting your child up for success. But it's definitely a conversation you can have with your school counselor.
Will 9th graders be issued new Chromebooks?
That is the plan, and I thank our information technology folks who are here helping us with this stream, and they're shaking their head to me. Yes, so that is the plan. They are getting new Chromebooks in ninth grade, and they'll be much like the ones the sixth graders got this year. They'll have the touchscreen, they'll have the stylus, which I know is it's helpful, especially for students in math when they're doing Go formatives or whatever they might be using. They kind of enjoy that stylus, so they will be getting new Chromebooks. The distribution of that will probably be the first week of school or so. We'll be handing them out. And I believe they'll be collecting back the old ones in June over at their middle school.
Mr. Gutschall, how much leeway is there in a ninth grade schedule to ensure by the time of high school graduation, a child is ready for upper tier university entrance?
So in ninth grade, basically the students have to take a math, the science, the social studies, and English. We look to have the student complete their art music requirement for graduation. For the upper tier university entrance, the students, typically those students are enrolled in our World at World Cult program, which is, it's the way I like to look at it, it's like a pre-college or a college preparatory type of class, or those students are enrolled in ninth grade English honors along with ninth grade social studies honors, so that they're in line to take the AP world class in 10th grade. So for ninth grade, we also offer for math, students could be double accelerated. If they're already double accelerated coming to us, they would take Algebra 2 here at High School West. For students that have 1 year of acceleration, they would be taking Geometry honors here at High School West. Along with that, for students that accelerated for science, they have taken Earth Science in 8th grade, they would take Bio honors in 9th grade, and that would line them up to be able to take AP Chem in 10th grade or continue with Chemistry honors and then pursue physics, college physics, and then AP Bio or AP Chem if they don't go with the AP Chem route in 10th grade. So again, it's the ability to take classes at the accelerated level are available here for math, for science classes. And am I missing any, Ms. Lennon McMahon? I kind of went over math, went over science. Our English for the students that have taken English 9 and Social Studies 9. We have World Lit and World Cult. Along with that, for students that have taken Design and Drawing for Engineering in 8th grade, they can take Computer Integrated Manufacturing. And those are college level courses that you can receive credit from Rochester Institute of Technology. So that's through Project Lead the Way. Many different options that are available here. So you could be a student that accelerated and still not have to travel to High School East. Now, we typically have about 1% to 2% of our students that might be triple accelerated with math. They would need to travel to High School East for a particular course, but we're able to offer many honors and accelerated level classes to our 9th graders that are ready for them.
Mrs. Lennon McMahon, are students provided with textbooks for each subject?
So essentially, if a textbook is needed, students will be provided with a textbook. Many of them now are online, so students will have access online, but if one is needed, one will be provided in their classroom.
And also, are ninth graders able to participate and try out in sports?
Yes, absolutely. So ninth graders absolutely can try out for sports. There is a sports clearance process that they will have to go through every season to ensure they're healthy and able to participate in sports, but all students in ninth grade do have access to the sports program.
And what system will be used to communicate in real-time status students' assignments and grades? And will this be a standard system with real-time and accurate data?
So we use Infinite Campus, and it's the parent portal that we currently have now. As far as real time, I'm not sure specifically what is meant by that, but I will say that, you know, as far as teachers grading assignments based on their course load, there usually is, you know, some lag as far as grades being entered into the system because it does take a teacher time to grade everything. So it could be, you know, a good 24 to 48 hours before an assignment is put in. So if you're specifically looking for real time, you know, your child turning something in and it being put in 5 minutes later, not quite with that accuracy, but we will continue to use the portal, and teachers will put them in the system in a timely manner.
How do CVL students fulfill the 1,200-hour lab requirement for science?
Currently, there is a waiver, there's flexibility from the state in our current pandemic era with the lab requirement. We would, once we are post-pandemic, And what that looks like, we'll have to see what the guidance is from the state. There's currently a waiver, and virtual labs are permitted. Once we are post-pandemic, I'm not sure how that will look, but we're currently still in that environment, and I don't see that changing in the near future. So.
Can students bring their own devices in ninth grade?
So we prefer the students to use our Chromebooks for a number of reasons. One would be we can't service anything that's their own device. So if they come in and it's not working, we can get them we can get it working, we can get them another device. When they bring their own, it makes it much more difficult because we just can't touch them, we can't service them, we don't have the ability to do that, or necessarily the personnel to kind of handle all their devices. So we do ask that they use their Chromebooks. We also have our chargers here. Should they forget, we do ask they charge them at home, but we have much more ability to kind of help them out when they use their school Chromebooks. They're also preloaded with certain apps and extensions that they may or might not be able to get on their personal device. So, I mean, when they're home, they can use a personal device, of course, but when they're here, we do ask that they use their Chromebook for a number of reasons.
Will the counselor take into consideration when creating a schedule for a student with an IEP, a request for 4 classes to be scheduled as early in the day as possible?
So we try to accommodate all of our students with schedules. However, we have so many courses. Mr. Gutschel, how many hundreds and hundreds of courses? I know we have 800 students or so in this building, 740 next year.
There's several hundred. It's around, probably, if you look 9 through 12, you're talking 300 plus classes.
So when we schedule those, we can't put all the math classes in the morning or the social studies in the afternoon or science in the afternoon or whatever. We have to make sure the classes are balanced. We have to make sure they fit with their schedules, fit with students' electives or resource rooms or whatever their program is. And that's kind of run by our computer. And then we hand schedule some that are not working. So it's kind of hard to place a student in specific classes at certain times of the day.
If a student is currently enrolled in honors English and social studies, is it too late for them to transition to an accelerated track?
So the answer is kind of yes and no. There really is not an accelerated track in social studies and English. And it's a little different in science and math, where there's an accelerated track, and they'll be taking a class as a senior that they would not be able to take if they were not accelerated. But in social studies and English, really there's the honors and AP option. So if your child is in honors or looking to go into honors or AP, we have 2 AP English classes they would take in 11th or 12th grade, or 2 AP Global, AP US. We also offer Syracuse University courses in the social studies. They would take those, but there is not an accelerated option per se for English and social studies.
Ms. Lennon McMahon, what is the high school cell phone policy?
So in the high school, students will be happy to know that you can absolutely have your cell phones. When you're in the hallway, the cafeteria, some of those unstructured areas, you can absolutely have them out. If you're listening to music, we do ask that you use 1 earbud instead of 2. The reason being that if we had to give directives, or, hopefully there will never be one, but if there's an emergency, then you could hear directives at that point. So we do ask that there be 1 earbud. So students can absolutely have their cell phones out. Every once in a while, there may be, while students have Chromebooks, sometimes a teacher, will let students have them out for a Kahoot lesson or Kahoot activity. So there are times in class when they might be utilized as well. And as far as having them in the hallways, what we do tell students, and we'll go through this on the first day as far as rights and expectations, we do tell students, though, we ask that you not photograph, record, film any student without their knowledge. All of those devices do have those capabilities, so if you're going to have it out and have that luxury and that privilege, there are responsibilities with that, so we just ask that you use them appropriately.
Is there National Junior Honor Society and National Honor Society in the high school?
Yep, there's National Honor Society, and there's also more selective honor societies, I guess I would say. There's World Language Honor Society, there's Tri-M for the music department. I know those are more at East. Am I missing any of the other ones?
So there are a number
Art
of
Honor Society,
Art, yeah.
There's art, math,
ROCAP is
social studies.
Yep.
We have an honor society for almost every discipline, and the National Honor Society would be the general one I think that they're talking about there, but not here at High School West, of course.
Is AIS offered in 9th grade, and if so, who determines eligibility? The 8th or 9th grade counselor?
So that would be taking care of looking at 8th grade and also middle school standardized test results along with the students' grades in 8th grade in that particular subject. We also look at common assessment results and the teacher recommendation in 8th grade. So we look at multiple measures to determine which students would be in need of a little more support, be it for AIS English if they need writing support. We have AIS Reading, which is also credit bearing, where students can be in a reading program and basically get the reading comprehension skills that would really help them be successful in 9th grade and beyond. And those are credit bearing courses. So those are the AIS classes. For math, that's the AIS is the lab class. So students being in the lab class or taking an extended over 2-year Math A and Math B for algebra would be the AIS option for math. I think there was also another question about AP classes for social studies for 9th graders. AP for 9th grades is not an option for social studies, but our 9th grade social studies honors is in a way a preparation class for AP World, as well as our World Cultures program. That also prepares students for AP US as they have taken a year ahead for accelerating in the middle school for both English and in social studies.
Mike, I think for the accelerated global class, they do a lot of AP writing, right?
Yes.
Is that correct? It's almost like a 2-year AP course. But
Very
we don't
much.
call it that.
That's a great point, Mr. Agustinoni. And I know looking at the textbook for the students that are in social studies honors, 9th grade global history and geography honors, their textbook is really almost at a college level. But they're not thrown basically, here's your book, good luck. The teacher really works with the students to help scaffold the book to prepare them how to read at that higher level to get them ready for AP World in 10th grade.
Are students allowed to wear hats during the day?
So yes, students may wear hats in the building, and I'll jump down too, because I also see May students have backpacks during the day. Right now I have to say that's a maybe, and the reason we say maybe, prior to this year in this building, based on the size and the number of students left their backpacks in their lockers. This year with fewer students in the building and not having access to the lockers, students were carrying bags. So as far as the backpack policy and a student's ability to carry it around the building, at this point it's a maybe. We don't completely know what next year will look like, but it is something that will be looked at and reviewed.
Can a student enroll in college courses in the summer, and would the credit count towards high school credit for graduation? Would you recommend this? Why or why not?
So I think the recommendation why or not depends on the student and the family and the situation with your individual student. In order to get credit, it has to be approved and it has to come from an accredited university. So the most common example of that is if we have a student who's not accelerated in math, yet maybe they should have been. So they get to 10th grade in the summer before 10th grade or summer before 11th grade, summer before 11th grade, I should say, and they take pre-calculus at Hudson Valley, and then we will count that, and then they can accelerate themselves. So they would go from Algebra 2 during the school year to pre-calculus to calculus, and in essence, they've accelerated themselves. But that's something you want to work with your counselor with, you want to work with me on in terms of college courses. We have seen a dynamic change, right? The pandemic has changed some things where students are now taking more online courses. Colleges are offering more online. I know they were before, but that's kind of expanded. So as we kind of move through this, if you have specific questions about what would benefit your student, and sometimes it'll benefit your student even if it does not count for high school credit, there might be a benefit. But those are questions you're going to ask your counselor, college admissions counselors, before you kind of go ahead. And of course, we want our students to enjoy their high school experience too. So we want to make sure they can handle it, make sure they have the time for it, and they also have time for themselves when they're kind of going through the process.
Is double accelerated applicable to 9th grade or 10th grade? What are subjects that are double accelerated?
And talk about math.
Yes, and along with that, basically students that double accelerate, that takes place generally in elementary or as the student goes from elementary to the beginning of middle school. By the time they come to us, those students have already accelerated for 1 or 2 years. So here at 9th grade for the students, as I mentioned before, that have accelerated previous to coming to High School West, double accelerated for math, they've already taken their algebra and their geometry. So they would take Algebra 2 here at High School West. For students that accelerated in English and social studies in the middle school, they would come to us taking our 10th grade World Lit World Cult pre-college program, a college prep program here at High School West. For students that accelerated in middle school with science. They have taken earth science in middle school. They come to us and they would take bio honors here in ninth grade, which is typically a 10th grade class. And as Mr. Gustinoni pointed out, that was a really good example for those students that did not accelerate in math, but they're doing really well. They can look as they go into from their 11th to 12th grade year, going from Algebra 2 in their 11th grade year to in the summer taking a pre-calculus class at Hudson Valley to be ready to take calculus here at the high school in 12th grade.
Can students take summer school coursework to get ahead and allow them to take more electives during the school year?
So there are some restrictions with taking summer school coursework in terms of the seat time. A lot of times that's to recover credits. They have the seat time and they were not successful, and then they're going to take the class over the summer. We do offer health in the summer, so students can take a health course. It's a hybrid course. Well, in the past, it's been a hybrid course. They would come in a couple of days and have a couple of days online. We're still kind of ironing out what that will look like. But health is a half-year course. It's a half a credit. So students are able to take that in the summer and kind of take care of the health requirement moving forward. It does free up a little time in their schedule. And I have to tell you, to graduate, it's 22 credits, right? And they're going to take 6.5 or so credits here, 5.5, 6.5, 7 credits at High School West. And if you do the math, really, high school, you can be to your 22 credits in almost 3 years. So there is time to take electives. You don't have to rush it. And when you get to your senior year, you could really be taking 2 or 3 courses and then have a lot of room for electives. And the room for electives will expand once you get through ninth grade. So there is time for electives, again, because you're looking at 22 credits and you're earning 6 or 7 a year. So you will get to that mark and have plenty of room for electives.
And Mr. A, are there examples of college summer school classes that a student could take that would allow them to take AP classes in 12th grade?
So I'm trying to understand the question. College, there are some college courses. Pre-calculus is the best example. Again, you're going to want to work with me. You're going to work with your counselor. I would work with the academic administrator. But you would be able to take AP courses your senior year, your junior year, your 10th grade year without taking summer college courses. And we do offer a number of college courses as well. There's the whole Project Lead the Way series. Like I mentioned before, we have the Syracuse University psychology courses. We have courses from RIT, which I just mentioned with Project Lead the Way. So we have a number of college level courses as well to take that you would get credit for here at Shenandoah High School. The tuition is reduced. We have a number of Hudson Valley courses. I believe we have 9 or 12 credits in math through Hudson Valley. It might even be higher than that. So we have a number of credits you can take here, and the tuition's a reduced rate, so it really does make sense. Again, it's not always dollar for dollar. I tell parents all the time, just because you take 3 credits here does not mean you wipe out 3 credits at whatever college or university you go to. Sometimes you do. Sometimes it'll take the place. Sometimes it'll allow you to register sooner. So if you leave here with 15 credits, you might be able to register as a second semester freshman. You might get some general education requirements waived. Some schools might say you still have to take 120 credits at our university, but we'll give you these credits and it can go towards a minor, or you might be working on a double major. So there is a benefit to taking college level courses and paying for the tuition. And we do have a program in place. If there's ever an issue where the cost of the tuition here for the college level classes is a problem, we work to make sure that is not an obstacle. We don't want that to be an obstacle for anyone. So that is there is a process for that as well. So there's a lot of benefits to kind of enrolling in the courses.
Ms. Lennon McMahon, where can a student find a list of all available clubs? And also, how would a student join Key Club?
Yes. So all the clubs, if you go to the main webpage, shennet.org, and you click on high school, I believe it's the right-hand side of the page. It will say clubs and extracurricular activities. So if you click on that link, it should bring up all of the clubs that are offered at both High School East and High School West. So students and their parents can go through and look at that together and determine what is best for you. And what was the club that they wanted to know how to join?
Key Club.
Key Club. So what will happen is the first couple of weeks of school, once you join, there will be announcements as far as when meetings will be held, whether they will be in person or virtual, and how to attend those meetings. So what I would do is, the first couple of weeks of school, be listening to the morning announcements, and the advisors will put the announcements on for students to know how to join.
Are there any differences in the dress code at High School West from what students would be used to being in middle school?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. It's really just, your basic appropriate attire. And I know that there was the question earlier as far as the backpacks. I know in the past that was a change for students to not be able to walk around with those in the building, but that is something that we have to review depending on what the guidelines are for next year. So other than that, the dress code is pretty much the same.
What are the LOAT requirements for a Regents Diploma?
So we encourage our students to take language throughout the entire high school career, but you do need 1 credit of a world language to get the Regents Diploma. Now, for the Regents Diploma with advanced designation, you need 3 credits in world language or a pathway of 5 credits in business, tech, art, music. A number of our students will take language their entire high school career. And I was mentioning college credits before. There are 2 SUNY level language classes for Spanish, French, I believe Latin and German as you go through. You also have the option to take Chinese once you're in high school, so you can pick up another language once you're in 11th grade beyond whatever you are taking currently. Do you see a question on BOCES there, Ms. Drago? Was there a question?
Yes, there is a question on BOCES, and they're asking at what grade is a student eligible to attend CTE programs?
So the CTE programs, the Career Technical Education, they're students that go in 11th grade. We do a trip. We take students down, again, post-pandemic or pre-pandemic. You tour the facilities. You get to see all the CTE options that are available, and you would start that in 11th grade. Now, you must be on pace to graduate because when you go, half of your day is not at the high school. You are at the Albany CTE Center, Saratoga, or the Mohan CTE Center. So if you're behind in credits, it does make it difficult to get you to graduate in the 4-year time frame. So you want to make sure you're on pace with credits. And while you're at the CTE programs, there's integrated credits in certain subjects as well. So it would be 11th grade when you would have that option, and it's a half day there and a half day at Shen, and the same thing your senior year. Most of the programs are 2-year programs.
Are incoming 9th grade students eligible to take health in the summer?
Great question.
Generally,
I don't know.
we haven't had any students do that. They normally do that between their 9th and their 10th grade year. But that might be a good question if you're looking to pursue that, so that you can take an additional electives when the student reaches high school East, as health is normally a 10th grade course. You could reach out to the summer school principal.
Yeah, I would take that and map that out, like kind of look at, see if there is the benefit to do it. If there is, I would say we want to do whatever, helps you and your child or helps your child. But if it's taking the class over the summer, maybe they didn't have to, and we know it's been a tough year for students, the advantage might not be there. You kind of want to map it out and see what the schedule looks like in 10th grade or 11th grade as you kind of go through, or they take it after 9th grade this summer. But that's a good question. I don't know if we've had that.
Yeah, that's a one of the ones that I did not expect to see today. Good questions. Keep the good questions coming.
Will we continue to have in-person and virtual options in the fall? And what will the 9th grade schedules look like?
So that's still to be determined. We don't know the answer for sure right now. Other than the ABCD, there's a question about 2 days in person, 3 days virtual. Again, we don't know how that's going to look, if it's going to be the same as what we have this year, or if it would be perhaps 2 in, 2 learning from home, then 2 in, 2 learning from home, or it could be a different option. It could be, perhaps where we're looking at 4 days in a row in and 2 out, where we have more than 2 cohorts. So we still have to determine how that's going to look when we receive more guidance from the CDC and from State Ed.
How will we be honoring our LGBTQIA classmates?
So we have a club. Good question. We have a club called the Saga Club, Sexual and Gender Acceptance. That club meets regularly, and actually they just worked on a new poster. Is that correct? Did you see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So they just got together and worked on new ally posters. They kind of refresh the ones we have, and those kind of get hung up. And we do a number of trainings on how to be an ally. So there are a number of different programs for all students here at Shenendehowa. But that club, Sexual and Gender Acceptance, kind of takes the forefront on that. We also run a program called Day of Dialogue, where we talk about acceptance for all students. Actually, Miss Lana McMahon, I got to give her credit. She kind of runs that program. So when I'm done here, I'm going to have her come up and talk about the Day of Dialogue and kind of what's behind that. Actually, if you want to come up and kind of talk about that.
So Day of Dialogue is, it's activity we hold a few times a year, and the idea behind it is to have students, faculty, and staff essentially have a platform where they can come and have conversations about topics that they might not necessarily talk about in the larger population. So they have, challenging conversations about race, gender, sexual orientation, anything that makes them feel who they are or feel that they are set apart from other people. And what we look at as a group is we share out experiences and talk about challenges and look at our school community and how can we make this an environment that is welcoming for everybody, where students, faculty, and staff feel welcome to be here as they are. So again, that's called Day of Dialogue. Right now, it's currently a half-day virtual program. We're hoping that as we move out of the COVID environment, that we can go back to on-site and go back to our full-day version of it. And we have a really great group of kids, and we actually have our next session this Wednesday. And what's unique about our next Day of Dialogue is we have a group of students who have been working with myself and Mrs. Kissinger. They've been training, and they're actually going to facilitate some of the sessions with our help. So we're starting to, we have a group of students who are starting to take the reins with this and take on a leadership role, and they're looking to lead some of these sessions and facilitate these conversations for students, faculty, and staff.
Depending on the state of the pandemic in September, will current CVL options be carried over? And will CVL students have the option to join classes just for labs?
So the questions with CVL and some of those pandemic questions are really probably questions decided by the district and not just Shenandoah High School. So we're not going to have all the answers to those. And also some of it's going to come from the state with seat time requirements and what the state is permitting. So we'll have to hold tight on that. As soon as we have information, we'll let you know. I'm just not sure what the CVL options will look like. And I don't want to say for sure right now because we don't have all the information on that. So more to come when we find out.
Are there programs available for parents to volunteer in particular subjects or content areas?
We typically do not have parent volunteers in the building. I mean, of course, it's a little different now in this pandemic era. But if there's an expertise in a certain subject, we'll bring in guest speakers. We'll have engineers come in and talk to different classes. So that does happen from time to time. I know some of our national issues classes will bring in some attorneys when they're talking about different items. So that can happen. I know our tech classes will bring in folks as well. But typically it's not a regular rolling thing like you might find at the lower grade levels. It's more content specific or expertise specific.
Do you already have to be enrolled in a language to take a language? Can a student take a new language? For example, can a student switch from Spanish to German?
So students can take another language when they get to 11th grade. They would take it in 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. They can kind of switch to another language. I don't know if the question is to switch, like they took a class in 8th grade and they want to switch to another language now. I'm not sure if that
So
was the
one
question.
could be that, let's say the student took Latin, for example, in 7th and 8th grade, and chose not to continue in the Latin pathways, but want to start with Spanish. They can begin and take Spanish 1 or 1-2, which depends on their comfort level with learning a new language. They would be placed in either a 4-year progression, starting with Spanish 1 all the way to Spanish 4, that they would complete their senior year, and they would take the checkpoint B exam for credit toward Advanced Regents Diploma. Or for students that are able to take, in a way, 2 years of Spanish, they would take Spanish 1, 2 in 9th grade, Spanish 3 in 10th grade. That's where the checkpoint B exam is given for those students that continue in that pathway, and then that will allow them to take the AP options for Spanish. For students that, as Mr. Agustinoni pointed out, once they complete that checkpoint B, on an every other year rotating basis, they offer over at High School East German 1-2 and French 1-2 opposite Spanish and Latin. I'm trying to think if I have that rotation correct. So every other year they have an opening for an additional language as well as Chinese 1 in 11th grade.
Are teachers available after school if a student needs additional help?
Yeah, so most teachers are, if it's after 2:40, and again, it's going to depend on what it looks like, post-pandemic. We just ask that students make appointments with their teachers. I can say in the past that Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, in the past, we had late buses, where if a student had an appointment with a teacher, they could stay and take a late bus. Unfortunately, this year, with the way everything is, we don't have late buses, but we do have a block of time at the end of the day where students can meet with their teachers virtually. So it really will depend on what the school year looks like next year, but we will definitely be looking to build in ways for students to have opportunities to have access to their teachers.
If a student has not received their teacher course recommendations yet, will they be receiving them soon?
So course recommendations are reviewed with the students by their counselor when they have their course request meetings with their counselors to help set up their schedule and choose what classes to enroll in the ninth grade. So that's where your child will find out the courses that they are recommended for. And then from there, in early April, you'll receive the course request indicating the courses that your child is initially enrolled in for their ninth grade year.
I heard if you have the plastic barriers, students can sit less than 6 feet apart. Depending on pandemic regulations, are you considering the barriers to have all students back in school 5 days?
So we would love all students back in school 5 days tomorrow if the regulations, and if it was safe to do so, we'd want all the students back right away. So I get to do all the contact tracing here at the high school East and West, and we work with Department of Health on a daily basis. So the rules do change. I haven't necessarily heard that with the plastic barriers that we've gone through, but that definitely could exist. It might even exist here. I just haven't heard that necessarily with the plastic barriers. And in Long Island, they might be bringing some students back full time. I'm not 100% sure. A lot has to do with space and how many students can fit in a particular room or particular building, how big your classrooms are, what your specialty programs are, how your cafeteria works, how many lunches you have, the capacity of your lunchroom, study halls, auditoriums, those kind of things all factor in with students when we're bringing them back. But believe me, we want to bring students back more often. We'd love to have them here every day like we used to. So we're definitely looking at those options to get kids back in the building. And that's a decision we'll have to make district-wide as we bring kids back and look at space and work with our school physician and Department of Health.
There was a question earlier from one parent asking if they could change electives in ninth grade. An example is that this parent's daughter took art, but she needed to take art as an elective in 10th grade, or could she change it? Again, you are not stuck in one particular pathway, subject way. The one thing is this: by taking art in ninth grade, if that child likes art and is looking to receive a 5-unit sequence in art, then they would need to continue to take art in 10th grade, 11th grade, and then perhaps 2 art classes in 12th grade to receive that 5-unit sequence. But again, let's say after completing the art requirement for graduation, if they want to explore other pathways, other avenues, be it technology, they can take design and drawing for production at High School East, or introduction to technology. They can start taking a business class like Intro to Business. So there's many other classes and courses that are available. And for those students that are taking the different career and technical education courses, by taking 5 different ones, they can take 2 business, 2 technology, and a family and consumer science. They can receive the 5-unit sequence that way for an advanced Regents Diploma if they choose not to go about to getting their checkpoint B credit for a world language.
Does the high school offer ROTC?
So JROTC, right? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
So there's a certain number. Actually, 2 years ago, myself and Mr. Ripchick, who is retired, he's an associate principal. Actually, he's at Gowanna. If you're a student at Gowanna, you'll see Mr. Ripchick. Now he's back filling in as the assistant principal there. We had a chance to go to Fort Leavenworth, a military base down in Kansas, and we got to learn about JROTC. And there's a certain number of charters that exist around the country. You can't just start a program or get a charter. And there's a cost involvement with that. I know it's been explored in the past. Currently, there is no JROTC program here. We do have military recruiters that do come in. Again, looks a little different in this pandemic era, but they do come in, and you have access to kind of talk to those folks and kind of map out your avenues. What we learned when we were down at Fort Leavenworth is the path, if you have a desire to become a military officer, not everyone is going to the academies to do so. There are a number of schools in the area that offer these programs, the ROTC programs. So you can work with your counselor. We have a lot of information on that if that is of interest of you.
I see sports starting back up, football, volleyball, etc. Is that only at the high school level?
So I don't want to speak for Mr. Cullen, our athletic director. However, I do believe right now it is only at the high school level. I know the other day we were actually standing at a girls' basketball game, which was nice to kind of have the indoor sports starting again. And there was talk about how they can kind of get the lower levels involved. If you want to reach out to the athletic department, they'll let you know where they're at with that. But right now, I believe it is just the high school level sports.
I do know that modified swimming might be one sport that is available to students currently in middle school. So keep your eye out open for that. I did see that in a publication recently.
Very good. So modified swimming, coming from a swim parent. So, yes.
I have an in on that one.
During the videos, it was mentioned that students have the opportunity to do personal development and fitness. Is this built in during their school day, and is it in addition to phys ed?
So that is their physical education. So we have two choices for physical education. One, the regular PE that parents, you and I took when we were in high school, but we also offer personal development and fitness for students that are recommended for that class by their coaches, their PE teachers. Currently in 8th grade, we get that list, and those students are placed in our personal development and fitness, and it meets just as much as our PE classes once every 4 days.
This is a follow-up question, I believe, from earlier, a parent whose daughter is enrolled to start in grade 9. She's currently in a private school, but it would have been at Gowanna Middle School. Is it best that she contact the 8th grade counselor at Gowanna prior to April?
No, so please wait for our high school counselor to reach out to you. If you do not hear from our high school counselor by the end of May, I encourage you to call our Counseling College and Career Center here at High School West.
We thank you for all the questions. Looks like, I don't know, if some more come in the next minute or so, we'll kind of be happy to answer them. We are always available. I can't stress that enough. I know some of you might be a little stressed. Your students going to high school. Some students out there might be a little nervous with high school coming up. I got to tell you, you have to reach out to us with any questions, concerns. We are available. You can call, you can email at any time, and we do our best to get back to you right away. So I think that's it. Is that right, Ms. Drago, with questions?
Yep, I believe we were able to successfully answer every question.
Okay, so we really do thank you for tuning in. We know it was a little different. When we can, we want to get people in the building. We want parents to kind of come see the building. So as regulations allow, we will be doing that, and we'll get information out to you soon. So keep checking your email, and we'll get info to you. But I do thank you. And there's some thank
Mr. I know we're getting some last comments, but just want to point out, at this table here, you have a new high school parent to be right here with Mr. Agostinoni come September. I've had one go through high school so far. I have another one that's going to be a member of the class of 2026, so be entering 8th grade next year. And Miss Lennox McMahon has had two that have gone through the Shenandoah High School. So we've lived it, and I think we're going to live it. We're currently living it. I think it's wonderful to experience what you experience as a parent, as well as an educator and an employee, as we want what's best for your children, as we want what's best for our children as well. But I want to thank you for being a part of this Q&A session, and we're here for you, and we look forward to having your children join us in September.
Ms. Lynn McMahon?
I just want to say that, I too look forward to working with everybody and getting students back into the building. I do want to thank everybody as well for taking the time to join us tonight. I know it's late at night, but there's also something to be said for being able to do this in the comfort of your own home. So again, reach out for anything that you need. Our email addresses are all on the website, and we're happy to help at any time. So,
I got to say this, Michelle, I like yours, that you get a raise, so we'll have to make sure we send you a check.
All right, thank you very much, everyone, and we'll be in touch. Reach out at any time. Thank you.
Thank you.